G'day and welcome to Aussievision. My name's Liv and we are here today to talk about a big one. It is Melodifestivalen in Sweden, or Melfest, Mellow, whatever you want to call it. I am joined here today by an expert panel, which is Joel, Sam and Emma.
Hello.
G'day everyone.
Hello.
Also, big shout out to Joel and Emma, who have been our Swedish correspondents for this season so far. So thanks for all the hard work you've been doing up to this point. And you must be pretty excited to see this all sort of culminating now. But we do have a lot to talk about, a lot of acts. So we'll move straight on to the first one. We're going to start with an entry that I don't know if everyone kind of thought was going to be a big one, but it's sort of gotten a bit of traction. It's Greczula and Believe Me. Joel, what do you think of this?
I really dig this tune. It's got a great vibe to it. Anytime that someone brings a genuine story to the stage, I just melt. And this guy does it in spades. It's a sound that's really reminiscent of old school Queen or something like that. So I'm a really big fan of the song. I'm just worried about what sort of chance it might have because it's not a traditional Melfest sort of song. Not that I'm trying to pigeonhole the song at all, but I reckon it would have a much better chance going up for another country because it's got a really sophisticated sort of sound to it. And what I love about Melfest is that you know what it's going to bring. It's that dance banger, it's that really pop sort of number, and this doesn't fit into that box. But it'll be interesting to see what Emma or Sam thinks about it.
Yeah, well, speaking of Sam, what do you reckon there?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a great sort of old school performance. I had in my notes when I watched the performance, it has almost an Elton John sort of feel with the piano and the sort of bold costumes as well. He also has a very unique vocal timbre. To be honest, not really my genre of music, but I can appreciate this is a very good quality song in the genre that it sort of represents. And interestingly, I found out that he's a champion youth table tennis player, which I found really interesting because given his style of music, that wasn't the sport I was expecting him to go for. So I think this should finish in hopefully the upper echelons of the Melfest final, I think. Yeah.
Emma, do you concur?
I do. I really enjoyed this entry. I hadn't heard of Greczula before Melfest. And so I sort of went into watching him with no expectations, apart from a few whispers from those who'd been at rehearsals that he might be one to watch. And I was just blown away because this is not your typical Melfest performance. Most of the songs that we see at Melfest are written by a pretty small team of Swedish songwriters, and this one isn't. And straight away that was obvious. So it broke the mold from what we expect from a typical Melfest entry. And I was blown away by his performance. He really owned that stage and worked the crowd, and his voice was amazing. I almost think the song itself, if you just look at the song, it's maybe slightly on the basic side, but it didn't matter because it was so enjoyable. It was a real feel-good, happy song, and I watched that and I just thought, oh wow, that's the kind of entry that I would love to see Sweden send to Eurovision. I don't think he's going to do it this year, but I'd love to see him come back because, yeah, it's just such a talented guy, and I was blown away by his performance.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to agree with little bits of all of your ideas there, basically, which is just that this also is not really my genre of music. So I agree with you there, Sam. And to be honest, the first time I saw him float down on that piano, I thought, who's this tool? He had almost too much swagger for me to take him seriously. But then I think once the 6 a.m. fuzzies kind of wore off, I started to understand it and it grew on me. But I agree, Joel, with a lot of the sort of Queen influence in there, and also like what you said as well, Emma, that this just doesn't sound like anything that we typically hear in Melfest because it isn't from that small pool of general songwriters that we hear from. So it's definitely grown on me, and I'm glad it's going to be there in the final for something different. And I love that little camera shot where they put like the perspex in the piano and then like they look up. As long as they get that right and they don't overuse it, I think that's a really cool shot. So I would say there's a lot of creativity in the staging, because when you think of pop rock songs in national finals, they don't usually have as many dense ideas as this does. Like, it really has quite a lot of moving parts, which for one-man show type stuff is really impressive. So got to really put my hat off to him. Quick fire. Let's say this does go to Eurovision, just against odds. How do you think it would go, Joel?
Well, it's definitely going to stand out against all the other entrants we've got this year because there's quite a big novelty vibe that's looking for the public vote, I reckon. So this one's just going to stand out because it's a piano-driven song that's just something that we're not going to hear from any other country. So from that side alone, he's probably going to get a handful of public votes and definitely jury votes for this one. But like we said, I don't think that this one will get there.
So you could see it maybe in a top 10 in a good situation.
For sure, absolutely. Is there any song that Sweden could sing that wouldn't get them a top 10 result?
Oh, I don't know. It's possible. Let's not jinx it. Sam, do you have some thoughts?
Yeah, I think with this one, I would say a solid top 10. I'm not sure if it's the Eurovision winner, but, Sweden can get, its default setting almost of top 10. Yeah.
Emma?
Yeah, I'd agree because I think this is the kind of song that it's going to get points from the jury and the televote. That vocal alone is worthy of some jury love. So maybe not for the song so much, but definitely for him and his voice. So I think this would get a solid result for Sweden if it was the successful entry. I think it could easily do top 10, particularly if they elevated that staging even more so, perhaps.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I'm sort of looking at that 8th to 12th kind of pocket, and there's not a lot of pop rock happening this year, so it would stand out in that way. Moving on to the next entry, it is Klara Hammarström with On and On and On. I'm going to yap about this a lot in a moment, so I'm going to let someone else go first. Sam, I'll let you kick this off.
Well, I'm glad you started with me because we're talking about genres of music that we get and we don't get, and this is right up my alley. Apart from the stupid song title, I think this is like pop perfection. I really, really enjoy it. I've been listening to it all the time. Like, yes, it's a bit basic, but this is, Swedish female pop done really well. I like the Grecian theme of the whole performance. I don't think we've seen that in Melfest before. I'm a little bit stunned that she didn't win her semi-final. I think, there might have been some sort of sympathy, nostalgic vote there. But, she was number 1 on the Swedish charts last week. And hopefully she should get her best Melfest placing, I think, with this one, hopefully. She doesn't have a very good running order, number 4 after Greczula, another favourite. I don't know what it is with Melfest producers. They gave her second position, I think, in 2021 final, first position 2022. So they've got something against her, I don't know. But she also has the most Spotify streams. Having said that, I'm not sure if she will win Melfest because of some of the other entries we'll talk about later. And if she did go to Eurovision, because there's so many up-tempo female songs, even from Nordic countries alone, like Finland and Denmark, how would she fare with the rest of them? But I'm keen to hear what everyone else thinks.
Joel, do you agree?
Oh, look, I love Klara, but I feel so sorry for her because she keeps bringing middle of the road songs to Melfest. And I just saw your reaction to that. But honestly, I want her to win one day. I really do. It would be great to see her on the main stage if she brought a song that was worthy of winning not only Melfest but also Eurovision. And for me, this one just isn't memorable enough to get it across the line. But what do you or Emma think, Liv?
Emma, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I 100% agree with Joel. I love Klara, but for me, the song is not memorable enough, and I actually did have to go back and listen to it more than some of the others to remember the tune after I'd seen it. And like as Sam mentioned, if this did go to Eurovision, we've already got a lot of female pop in Eurovision already this year. I think there's only so much that, Eurovision can take. It wouldn't necessarily bode well for Sweden or for her. But look, I do love her, and I think she's a fantastic performer. I would love to see her there too. And I do think this is one of her better songs that she has taken to Melfest. But yeah, I don't think this is probably, I'd say this is probably wouldn't get Sweden its best result. And but I think it's more success for her is, I think, yeah, like as Joel mentioned, it's one of the most streamed songs from Melfest this year. It's going to be a massive hit there. And yeah, but I don't think it's going to Eurovision.
Yeah, I tend to agree in terms of pure Eurovision results. I don't think this is their best option. Totally agree with that bit. As for the actual song itself, this absolutely blew me away the first time I heard it. Like, I tweeted something. It was this is the most manufactured thing I've ever heard in my life. I love it. And like, it just went straight to the vein for me. It's like that typical overproduced but so catchy scandy pop that I come to Melfest for. Like, that's what I want. And I can tell you, when you strap that into your ears and go for a run, like, my 5K times in the last month have gone down single-handedly listening to that song. I'm not lying. I have some Strava data if people want it. But lyrically, I totally agree. This is like like a child play type lyrics, whatever. But this isn't actually the easiest song to sing live. And she makes a really, really, she makes it look pretty easy. There's a lot of movement. The actual staging itself is quite clever. There's a lot of really interesting pieces, and that little pan where it has the clock and she's like lying on the floor. That looks awesome. Like, and this is easily going to be like the most listened to song for me from National Final season this year. So for me, absolutely love it. But I totally echo what you and Joel said, that this perhaps isn't the best actual option to go to Eurovision in terms of like pure results. So we have a bit of a split from the team there. Interesting. Moving on to one of the other really big hitters. It is Kai with Bara Bara Bastu. Emma, you haven't gone first. You get to go first.
Yay. Look, this is a really interesting one. We usually see an act like this at Melfest every year. And so I watched it and enjoyed it for what it was, and was actually a little bit blown away by how popular it was, not just with the Swedes, but in the Eurovision fandom in general. And it's a sort of song that I've actually yet to find someone who doesn't like it. So usually with these kind of sort of on the fence novelty songs, you've got people that love it and people that hate it. I actually haven't come across anyone that doesn't like it. And it's really quite interesting because we've got a Finnish group who are singing in a dialect, a sort of a Swedish Finnish dialect about, saunas. And I think it's a sort of song that I think the fact that it isn't in English obviously helps it. I think in English it wouldn't work. Part of its charm is the fact, that it is in another dialect. It's grown on me. Like I said, I sort of wrote it off at first and then thought, oh, hold on, there's something going on here. I've watched it a lot more. I've listened to it a lot more. And I think this year, it might actually not be such a bad choice for Sweden, because Eurovision already, we've got quite a lot of other sort of novelty, but not pure novelty, but we're sort of sliding in that direction. So I think, it could actually do quite well if it went to Eurovision. Having said that, because we do have a lot of songs already that are sort of, in this genre, maybe that would sort of diffuse the voting a little bit. And I don't know, but it's such an enjoyable performance, and I think they've got a really good chance of actually taking the win.
Yeah, I'm going to have to echo a lot of what you said there, Emma. For me, I think perhaps the initial appeal was a little lost because, honestly, sauna culture is not big in Australia. So I was initially kind of like, yeah, cool. Yeah, woohoo, we're going to the sauna. But, like, to be honest, I had no connection myself with saunas, so I don't think I really kind of got the cuteness of it until I kind of remembered a lot of stories that my Danish cousins had told me about their times in saunas. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. It's like really special for Scandies and many people up north and stuff like that. So bless them. But I think this is as far as we're going to get from Sweden, where it's like letting their hair down. Can we be chill and fun like Finland in recent years at Eurovision, because by normal pop metrics, this type of entry is still borderline, overproduced and manufactured. But I think it's them that make it feel more authentic and give it that air of, giving it some grit. Because if it wasn't presented in the exact way that it is, I just don't think it would quite tug the heartstrings as much as it has. So this would be a big pitch for the televote from Sweden. This is a country that relies a little bit on that jury typically, and this is something that would have to have a good televote. So it'd be interesting to see how it go at Eurovision. Do you agree, Joel?
Absolutely. Uh, as much as I don't want to admit it, I think that Kai are in with a really good chance of winning. But that said, from an old school Eurovision purist who doesn't normally like the novelty type songs, I love Sweden coming with those classic tunes that have broad appeal. But this is certainly one that could sneak through this year. For me, there's two highlights to this song. One, the staging is just so enjoyable and captivating. I can sit there and just watch it and watch it and watch it and just feel like I'm getting wrapped up in that sauna environment in a forest. So it's really, really fun to watch. But also, the other thing that excites me with this one is it'll be the first time in 27 years that we've heard a non-English language being presented by a Swedish entrant. The last one was back in 1998, I think, with Jill Johnson and Charlie R. So for those two things alone, I think it would be fantastic to see Kai win. But personally, I have another favourite that I'd like to see get across the line. So we'll just see what happens with that one.
What do you reckon, Sam?
Yeah, I totally agree with what everyone says. I think it's a really great showcase of Nordic culture. Obviously, Swedish entries are great, but they're often a bit, static and very manufactured. You get that real sort of Nordic culture feel with the sauna. And if Norwegians can represent Sweden last year, why not Finns this year? Get some exports representing Sweden. I agree as well. I think, Sweden has had a lot of problems with the televote at Eurovision in recent years. But I can see this, if it did go to Eurovision, getting a really big televote, even from people who are fed up with Sweden winning Eurovision. I think, it's just such a great sort of entry that sort of captures, the imagination sort of thing. And as Joel said, it'd be great to see the Swedish language come back to Eurovision. I'm not really sure how the Melfest juries are going to rank this song. I have a feeling they're going to mark it down a little bit. And going last actually in Melfest is not a great thing in the past few years. Usually that's reserved for like a joke entry or like, some nostalgic sort of, old timer. But I think, going last this time, hopefully that's an advantage. Hopefully that can really pull in a big televote and cause an upset. They're number one in the Swedish charts this week, the most views on the Melfest YouTube channel. So there's a lot of momentum, but will it be enough to upset another big favourite, which we'll talk about soon? We'll have to wait and see.
Yes, the famous Melfest juries. Pretty much you need the nod from them if you want to go to Eurovision. Does matter what the televote does, of course, but you definitely need the favour with the juries. Well, circling just back to, let's say this gets a ticket to Eurovision. Woohoo. Where do we reckon it would land in this lineup? I'm finding it really hard to kind of put a bit of a range on this, to be honest, because I could see it doing very well and maybe making bottom of the top 5, and then I could see it completely flopping, honestly, and just being like 18th. Joel, what do you reckon?
Yeah, I reckon it will definitely be on the left side of the leaderboard. And as Sam said, I really think it's because people would get behind a non-standard Swedish entry, something that's a bit more fun, something that's in a different language to what they normally send. I think it would really cut through any pessimism that is out there in the fandom about Sweden's success in recent years. So I see this doing pretty well.
Sam?
Yeah, I actually think, I'm not sure if it's a winner again, but I actually think potentially top 5, as you said, Liv, bottom top 5 material. Yeah.
Hammer?
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I think, as Joel mentioned, we have seen in the Eurovision fandom some sort of anger towards Sweden when they do send their sort of typical Swedish entry that they send most years. And so this would just shake things up so much. And I think a lot of people would want to reward them for that, if they did send this, for sending something so out of the box for Sweden.
Totally agree. I'm going to stick with my very broad range of 5th to 18th. You can take that as you want, listeners. Now, I did, because I do enjoy yapping on and on and on, forget to do a little range for Klara Hammarström. So let's just circle back to her. Emma, if Klara made it to Eurovision, where do you reckon she would sit in this current sphere?
I'm going to say maybe bottom of the left-hand side of the scoreboard, maybe 10th to 15th, I'm sort of thinking. I don't think it's going to get a top 10. But let's face it, it is a likable enough song, and Clara's a gorgeous girl. Look, that's good. That's going to help her get some votes, rightly or wrongly. So I think, but I would put it maybe 10 to 15th. I would think.
Yeah, no, I can see that. Sam?
I'm going to be a bit more optimistic. I'd say 6 to 10. And yes, as Emma says, she is a very pretty girl. A fellow contributor, Haley, said if you had an AI-generated Swedish woman, that's probably what would appear. But yes, 6 to 10th I'm going to go with, yeah.
Joel?
You know what? This will get through the semis, but then it will get absolutely annihilated. Sorry, Liv. There's just nothing there that's memorable. Who's going to vote for this amongst all the other
Sam?
the novelty pop girlies, apart from Sam and Liv? I just don't see this doing well for Sweden.
I do kind of agree that this is an entry I can imagine that is doing very well with Euro fans. But maybe when you take it outside of our sphere, I could understand perhaps the general public not actually getting it. So I'm going to be a real pain in the butt, and I'm going to say 6 to 16th, a nice big spread there for her. But yes, she would get my votes. Moving on to probably the biggest water cooler moment of Melfest this year, which was Måns Zelmerlöw's return to the contest with the entry Revolution. There's a lot to unpack here, and I think there's a big contrast between this entry and its other main competitor in Kai with Bada Bada Bastu. So let's get cracking. Emma, what are your thoughts?
Well, I love Måns, so no secret there. So Revolution is the song that I am secretly hoping will win. And I think if that went to Eurovision, it would be definite top 5 material. I'm not going to say win, but having said that, I do actually think it would be a worthy winner, but I'm not sure that it would win, but I think it could definitely go top 5. It's interesting. There's a lot of people feel very strongly about this entry. I haven't seen a lot of sitting on the fence. You either like it or you don't like it. And I have been a little bit surprised actually at how much sort of backlash, I suppose, there has been towards this entry. Måns did say he wouldn't come back to Melfest unless he had a song that he thought he could win Eurovision with. So he thinks this is the one. I think it's a pretty good effort. A lot of people have said Heroes 2.0, but I sort of think that is his sound. So maybe people are judging him a little bit too harshly because that's just his sound. So, I think he did a great job with his performance. I thought that the emotion of the song he conveyed very well with his body movements and the sort of the power that he put into his vocals. Obviously, there'd have to be some changes, which I'm expecting to even see for the final, because as we saw in his heats, he ended up with a mouthful of paper. So hopefully they've sorted that out. But I particularly think the last minute of the song was really epic. The way the camera cuts and the lighting just really, I got goosebumps in the last minute of the song. I think that that really made the whole performance. And I think, with all that's going on in the world, maybe it's a bit cheesy, but I think there's room at Eurovision for a song like this, particularly when we have got, a lot of, food-related songs and what else this year so far. There is room for some seriousness, and there's not a lot of it there so far. So I think, I think Måns is the man to do it for Sweden.
Eurovision, one with a lot, I think. Sam, I want to hear from you on this one.
Okay, so I'm going to go on one extreme of the pendulum. I actually really don't like. I think it's a very, I know it's his sound, it's a very generic Swedish pop country track. I actually think it's a little bit worse than Heroes, that's just my opinion. I also don't really get the staging, it's literally like Leslie Roy from 2021, but bigger. And the confetti is hazardous. As Emma said, he almost choked on it in the semi-final. Very dangerous, not good. And I think it's a bit ironic that someone is singing about revolution when they're essentially like the bourgeoisie of, Melfest and Eurovision. But anyway, but having said that, I do think it's going to win because, I think the Melfest juries are going to lap this up. And it's interesting as well. I think this will also get a strong televote. So even though it's lagging on Spotify compared to Klara, Kai, even Meira, the Melfest televoters are a very different demographic as well. They are very nostalgic. They're very sentimental. So I think he is the favorite on paper. But my problem is, and he is also the favorite for Eurovision, but my problem is, surely there's more than 2 people in Sweden who can win Eurovision for Sweden. And we're going back into the cycle of Sweden sending generic man, singing about generic pop. It doesn't, work very well for them in the televote. So I think, of course, that if it went to Eurovision, again, strong jury vote. But I think, and, maybe it'd be enough for it to win Eurovision entirely. But I think for Sweden long term, I'd like to see them shake it up because you don't want to fall into that trap of having, same entry every year. That's why I think Kai is a good choice. Even, Greczula, Klara would all be better choices. And yeah, personally, it doesn't do much for me. But I think we're going to hear from someone who really likes Måns. So we're going to swing back to the other end of the pendulum. Yeah.
That's correct. Let's hear from Joel.
I love Måns, and I love this song. I loved it when we first heard it in 2015, and I still love it 10 years later. It has gone rinse and repeat. He's clearly gone, okay, I've got a signature sound. Let's give the people what they loved in 2015 and let's just modernize it a little bit. So great song, but for me, what elevates it is the superb staging. I think it's fantastic. Sorry, Sam, so your eyes rolling. But seriously, whoever gets the biggest budget for staging in Melfest is going to come away as the winner. But what I love about the staging is just how many nods there are to that Heroes era staging. So we've got the LED wall in the background. His hand movements are in sync with the lighting as he's emerging from that cave. And then, like Emma said, that last minute is so visually powerful with all the confetti everywhere. The sound is so huge and stunning. This is just going to attract not just those jury votes, but so many people in the public are going to choose to vote for this one rather than think about which one of these 10 other novelty songs would I vote for.
Yeah, interesting. Let's swing the pendulum back the other way, I think. I love this healthy discussion because it is such a polarizing song for something that feels like it should sort of, be the bell curve that just catches the majority. It somehow doesn't. But I just feel a degree of dissonance with this entry because he's saying big words, big concepts, revolution, people who can change the world in a time where there is a lot of conflict. But what am I feeling? Nothing. I feel absolutely nothing from what he is saying. And perhaps, I'm a little bit numb to this style of entry from Sweden. A bit like what you've said, Sam. This feels like we're winding backwards because I will admit that this is a quality song with quality staging, quality performance, quality man, quality package. But this quality feels like it was produced in a hermetically sealed lab 2,000 meters below the Earth's surface. And I can't relate to that. I can understand that juries will recognize all these things as almost like a tick box. Yes, it has all the features of a good jury entry, but I honestly do think the public perhaps is going to, and it's hard to know how they're going to react, but I actually think they're going to react a bit more like me and Sam come grand final night, to be honest, if this is at Eurovision, because that has been the trend in recent years. Songs that are more authentic from the heart and all that kind of stuff that reek authenticity inside and out, they're the ones that are getting the really big televote, and I'm kind of worried for them. But in saying that, does Sweden need a good televote here? This is a year of Eurovision where we are a little bit void of really big jury hitting songs. Now, there's nothing wrong with creating a song that will get through a semi-final and absolutely kill it in the juries of the grand final, get a decent televote, and finish in the top 5. There's nothing wrong with that. But is that fun for us fans? not really, because obviously we want songs that, you know, we can shake ass to at Euroclub at 4 a.m. and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, there's nothing wrong with that, though. If Sweden wants to guarantee a good result and have respect from the juries and all that kind of stuff, that's totally fine. And there will be people like you guys, Joel and Emma, that love it also. So that's totally valid.
One factor works for him and against him. I really think that if anybody else bought this particular song, there would be so much more love for it. But I just think that in the fandom, there's a lot of people are just tired of Sweden. They're tired of Måns, which I think is a contributing factor. Because you strip away all that, and it's a decent Melfest song. It's a decent Eurovision song. Do you guys think that there's a Måns factor involved here?
I think, honestly, Joel, you could pick my favorite Italian artist and get them to sing this song, and I would still feel nothing, because I just do think that there's just a level of... It's, to be honest, if he wasn't singing about such an important kind of concept in such a beautifully wrapped Swedish parcel, I think I would connect with it more if it didn't take itself as seriously. But this is taking itself extremely seriously. And in that manner, I can't take it seriously. What do you think, Sam?
Yeah, I actually think the name helped him. I think, that people are very nostalgic for him. They're like, oh, Swedish winner, he won for us. I think it actually helped him. I think if it was some other rando Swedish guy, I'd agree with Liv. I just don't see it doing that well, to be honest.
Emma?
I think the fact that it's him definitely helps. There's definitely the factor. I think for me, look, I'm happy to admit part of the appeal was it's him singing it. I guess I feel, because I loved Heroes, and that was the first year that I actually watched Melfest back in 2015. So I feel a little bit of an affinity with him and that song that perhaps many people don't feel. So definitely I sort of went in. I can honestly say that perhaps if it was someone else singing it, I might not relate to it or like it quite as much. And possibly the fact that, it is a song about some pretty big issues, and perhaps in parts the music doesn't match the message. Perhaps if I was going to be really critical, but for me, I don't care. There's enough there that there's enough appeal for him. And I think a lot of people do have, like, perhaps in the fandom, the love is not there for him anymore, but in the sort of from the casual once a year fan, or people, who don't follow the national final season like we all do, I think they'll probably feel much more strongly towards him in the song than perhaps some of who have got sick of seeing him crop up at most of the Eurovision since he won with Heroes. Yeah.
That is true. Similar to Loreen, there's been enough time pass for them to make a return, and I think the public take it quite positively. So let's assume this is going to Eurovision. I don't think it is a done deal, but let's say it is. How is this going to do? Put a range on it. Sam, I'm going to make you go first.
Look, I do think it's going to win. If it did go to Eurovision, it wins the jury. And the jury in recent years, because of the 100% televote final, the jury winner wins. So, while I don't like this song, I think it will win, but I don't think it'll be good to Sweden. I don't really see him doing super well in the televote, but I think the jury will be enough. And in 2015, he actually didn't win the televote. Actually, he came third. That was the final year they did combined voting, but he didn't even win then. So I don't see how he's going to win the televote this time, but could be a winner, but I don't think it's the right winner.
Joel?
Yeah, look, I agree with Sam. The public televote isn't going to come for this. The place that he'll get his votes from will definitely be the jury. And I'm okay with that, because in a year where there's so much quality entries that are going to attract a public vote, that vote is just going to be split between so many different entries. So this year, more than any other year, I think that the jury winner is going to have it in the bag.
Emma, do you agree?
I do agree with that. Yeah, that Joel is right. There are so many other songs already selected so far this year that they're going to split the votes basically. So all it takes is for somebody with a strong jury entry to come in, and they just have to get enough televote to keep them, to keep them up the top there. So yeah, I think this could win. I'm not predicting a landslide victory or anything like that. I think it's going to be very tight, but I would be very surprised if this wins that Melfest, if it wasn't in the top 5, maybe even top 3, I'm going to say.
Yeah, I'm kind of feeling that perhaps there is a jury-friendly song that's going to knock it out of the park, kind of like Proud from North Macedonia a little bit ago, that we're perhaps overlooking, that could soak up more than we realise, and perhaps it could be a Jon Lundvik moment also where he gets a killer jury and then the televote absolutely dogs it. I could absolutely see that. Conversely, I could see this just winning the jury, coming fourth in the televote, and also winning. There are, unfortunately, a few too many factors at this point. But I'm going to say that I think he will be in the top 2 of the juries, and he's going to finish about 4th at Eurovision, if I had to guess. Well, that is all of the heavy hitters that we have covered, but we want to give some honourable mentions to some of the songs that, we really adore, but they have Buckley's chance of finishing in the top 3 probably of Melfest this year. Emma, did you want to kick this off?
Yes, Liv, I'm going to mention Annika Wickihalder, who has no chance of winning, but I love her. She competed at Melfest for the first time last year and made the final, which is very difficult to do as a first-time performer. And she ended up finishing 8th with her song Light. And I like her. I feel like she's almost the Swedish Whitney Houston. I was trying to think of who she reminds me of. She's just got such a huge voice, and her gospel style is her thing. And she just comes out, and I find she just lights up when she performs. You can see that she really, believes what she's singing. It comes down the camera, comes across to the crowd. She's just got such a joyous look on her face and expression, and the way that she sort of gets involved with the movement of the song. And I just always find her a breath of fresh air. So I was so pleased when I saw her back again this year, and made the final again. So there's obviously a market for the kind of music that she's making. As I said, I don't think she's got any chance this year in particular of winning, but I would love to see her come back. I think an entry from her would be a really positive step for Sweden, to see something, a gospel style. We have seen the gospel style with Jon Lundvik, but it would be good to see sort of a female gospel song make it through for Sweden. So I will be watching her on Sunday morning our time, and I know I'm going to enjoy her performance regardless of how she does.
Oh, delightful choice. Joel, who is your choice?
It's time for me to fanboy about another familiar Eurovision face, and that's Jon Lundvik. I love this song. And it's not everybody's favourite. It's not got any chance of winning, I know that. But he just does such a great job. I'm a sucker for any time someone can bring a live vocal to the stage that matches the studio version, and his upper register in a live song is just sublime. And great message to the song as well. Voice the silent. It's all about what we do is more important than what we say. But unfortunately, I think that there's another former Eurovision entrant that will one-up him this year.
Yeah, he's got some tough competition. Sam, who's caught your eye?
So I chose Scarlet, Sweet and Psycho. Yeah, definitely. I love seeing a rock entry at Melfest. There often are a few, but they never quite seem to win. So but I thought this one was great. I do think the staging is very, a bit weird and creepy, especially at the start. The makeup, in their style is very intense, almost like I just wrote down my notes, female Hatari in English. But that chorus is so catchy. I've been listening to the studio version again and again. Definitely better than their track Circus X from last year. Interestingly, when all the songs were announced, so before they were released, but when we just got the full list of participants, this was second favourite with the bookies behind Måns, because traditionally the last song in the last semi has been reserved for the song with the most hype. But now I think that's a disadvantage, because all the Melfest songs are released on YouTube in the charts from, the semi after they perform the semi-final, regardless of whether they win or lose. So I think they've lost a bit of momentum actually going last. But, I hope this can get a respectable place, and maybe this year's not the year, but definitely come back another year with a better song. Yeah.
That's true. And interesting mentioning the format changes to do with streaming, YouTube, and uploads and all that stuff. I'm not entirely, I don't know how I feel about it. Do any of you guys have strong opinions? Because I'm a little bit on the fence.
I liked it. I liked being able to hear all of the songs sort of straight away and not have them disappear after the ones that had got through. It sort of keeps them in line with all of the other countries' national finals. I think Sweden were the only country that had done it that way. So I actually like it. But having said that, it does mean that perhaps, given that the Melfest national final is spread across the largest number of weeks of all of the national finals, it's probably a little bit more difficult for the songs. Songs at the start can build up a bit more momentum than the later ones. So whether or not that has a long lasting impact on the competition remains to be seen. But I did enjoy being able to listen to all of them sort of as soon as they were released.
What do you reckon, Joel?
Yeah, when I like a song, I want access to it straight away, so that I can listen to it on repeat until I don't like it anymore. So yeah, I'm a big fan of this change.
Yeah, I suppose long gone are the days of me in like 2018 in like a group chat. We're all sharing like a shared Google Drive link with stuff that shouldn't be there, so we can all like watch the entries again and again and again. And then like that being like the sacred link that's like shared within the fandom, just so that we can actually watch the entries. So I guess this is a much more practical approach. Although in saying that, I did kind of enjoy the tradition of how absurd it was in some ways. So I kind of missed that a little bit. My entry that I want to talk about came out quite early in the piece. It was Meira Omar and Hush Hush. Ask my fiance, but any moment I've been given a TV remote, I have booted up YouTube and it's either Klara Hammarström or her that I've blasted through that TV, their live performance. And I don't want to admit how many hours I spent in my bedroom just kind of like trying to do her choreography and like nail it and make it look as smooth and good as her. And like, I don't want to laugh, but like, I had to laugh. Like when that camera operator completely stacked it in the semi-final. Like, I'm glad he was okay, because like I was like pissing myself. I was like, what the heck is going on? Is there a stage invader? There's like some man just like crawling upside down trying to like fix it. And I presumed what they would upload to YouTube would be splicing from her rehearsals and the actual live performance, but no, they just left it like completely raw. I was like, okay, whatever. But and that couldn't stop her from making that final. Do you know what I mean? She came third and then she made it to the final. Nothing is going to stop her. Also, on a side note, that shade of burgundy, or whatever you want to call it, is like the nicest shade of anything my eyes have seen all year. Straight up, period. So I'm so proud of her making that final. I shake ass to this every night. I love it. Absolutely adore it. On that note, thank you so much, Joel, Sam, and Emma, for joining me on another episode of Aussievision, chatting about Melfest. I hope everyone has a lovely Melodifestivalen this year, and may your favourite win. Catcha.
Hej då, Sverige!